Ever imagine stepping into a video game world and it's like instantly there in 3D from just one image?
Oh,
That's what today's deep dive is all about.
cool.
Google DeepMind's Genie 2.
Wow.
It's like having a magic lamp, right? But instead of getting a genie poof, you get these interactive worlds. And we've got DeepMind's research paper and their blog post, both from December 4th, 2024.
Okay.
Hot off the press, so we're going to break it all down.
It's not just about how it looks, though, right? The visuals.
Right.
The really amazing part is how Genie 2 can create what's called a world model. So think of it this way. It doesn't just make a pretty picture. It's building a whole simulation behind the scenes.
Okay.
Like it figures out the rules of the world, how things work, physics, how objects interact, even cause and effect.
So it's like teaching a computer to get gravity, not just show a ball falling.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you were, like controlling a character in a Genie 2 world and you hit a button to launch a rocket, it wouldn't just be some pre-programmed animation. Genie 2 would actually simulate that rocket's whole trajectory.
Wow.
Taking into account stuff like wind resistance.
Oh, wow.
Gravity.
To show you a believable outcome.
Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of worlds can it make?
Well,
Is it limited to certain things,
that's what's so cool.
Like just fantasy or sci-fi?
It can create this huge variety of environments.
Really?
Like 1 minute you're exploring a lush forest, the next you're in a spaceship,
Wow.
zooming through a nebula. And it all starts from a single image prompt that you give it. And Genie 2 takes it from there.
Okay.
And they've even linked it to Imagen 3,
Oh, wow.
Google's text-to-image AI, to give you even more control.
So I could type in robot exploring ancient Egypt, and then I could actually control that robot
Yes.
in this 3D Egyptian world.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Researchers showed these examples where Genie 2 can create what are called counterfactuals.
Counterfactuals.
So imagine taking the same starting point, the robot in Egypt,
Yeah.
but you make it turn left instead of right.
Okay.
Genie 2 can actually simulate what would happen in that alternate timeline.
Oh, wow.
So it creates a completely new chain of events.
That's wild. It's like a branching storyline that changes based on your choices.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how far those branches could go.
They're looking into that.
Okay.
One thing they pointed out was Genie 2's long horizon memory.
Okay.
It remembers what's out of sight,
Huh.
and then it renders it accurately when it comes back into view.
Okay.
So like if your robot went through a maze, it wouldn't forget what was around the corner,
So you can't cheat the system
Yeah.
by backtracking,
Right.
hoping the world's changed?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And it's not just about remembering the layout.
Okay.
They showed examples of Genie 2 modeling object interactions correctly, even when they're off screen.
Off screen.
Yeah, like a balloon that bursts when you're not looking at it. The consequences of that action are still there in the world when you come back.
So I could make a domino chain reaction off screen and then swing the camera around and see the results.
I wouldn't be surprised. They've shown even more complex things.
Really?
Doors, opening objects falling realistically.
Wow.
Even explosions that send debris flying. It's like a physics engine built into the AI. They even showed it modeling stuff like water effects, smoke, and realistic lighting and reflections. It's mind-blowing.
And all of this from just one image prompt. It makes you wonder how this could change video game design.
Yeah.
Like imagine being a game developer.
Right.
You have this idea for a world, but instead of spending months building it from scratch, in a 3D modeling program, you could just feed a concept art image into Genie 2,
Right.
and boom, you've got a playable environment.
Exactly. Talk about rapid prototyping.
I was reading about their tests with different avatars for flying. They tested a paper airplane, a dragon, a hawk, and a parachute, all within minutes, just by changing the image.
That's the cool part.
That's amazing.
You can quickly try different designs and see how characters or objects would behave in that world without having to rebuild everything.
So it's like a virtual playground for game designers.
Yeah, it is.
So we've got this amazing AI building these worlds,
Right.
but are we just playing in them, or can AI agents interact too?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
The DeepMind team has been experimenting with something called SIMA,
SIMA.
which is an AI agent that was developed with some game developers.
Okay.
The cool thing is SIMA can follow instructions in these Genie 2 environments that it's never seen before.
Wow.
It's not pre-programmed to do specific tasks.
Okay.
It's learning to navigate and interact on the fly.
So you could tell SIMA to find a key hidden in a drawer, and it would actually figure out how to do that.
Yes, exactly. In the paper, they describe these scenarios where SIMA is opening doors, exploring a whole multi-level house,
Wow.
even navigating different paths based on the instructions, all within these dynamic Genie 2 worlds.
So they're constantly changing.
Yeah, it really shows how much potential there is for training AI in these complex and realistic scenarios.
All this is really impressive, but how does Genie 2 actually do it?
Okay.
Is there a way to explain it without, a computer science degree?
Well, at its core,
Yeah.
Genie 2 is what's called a latent diffusion model.
Latent diffusion model.
Don't let the jargon scare you, though.
Okay.
It's like, imagine this giant library of videos.
Okay.
And Genie 2 has studied them all, learned the patterns and rules of how things move and change over time.
So it's like an artist that studied the masters and now can create their own unique work based on that.
That's a great analogy. And to make it even more awesome,
Okay.
it uses what's called a transformer model,
Okay.
similar to the tech behind those large language models that can, write poems and have conversations.
Wait, so the same tech that lets AI write haiku is helping it build these 3D worlds?
It is Genie 2 uses a transformer model to predict future frames in the video.
Wow.
It's like anticipating what'll happen next based on, what the world looks like right now and the actions being taken.
It's like it can see the future.
In a way, yeah.
Oh.
It's a cool example of how different areas of AI research are coming together.
This is all really mind-blowing. It feels like we're on the verge of something huge. But before we get too carried away, let's take a step back. Is there more to unpack about Genie 2?
Definitely. We've talked about all the amazing things it can do.
Right.
But every technology has its challenges, and Genie 2 is no exception. And then there were those interesting quirks the researchers mentioned, like that ghost in the garden they saw.
Okay, now that you've got me curious, we'll have to dive into those quirks and what this all means when we come back.
It's true that even with all this potential time, Genie 2 is still early days.
Right.
And one thing researchers are really focused on is consistency in these AI-generated worlds.
So making sure that things behave the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
No more random ghosts.
Exactly. It's about making sure that these simulated environments stay stable and predictable, especially if we want to use them for training AI agents.
Yeah, that makes sense. If the AI is learning in a world where the rules are always changing, who knows what it might learn?
It's like trying to learn basketball on a court where the hoop keeps moving.
Right. Not exactly a fair game.
Not at all.
So consistency is one thing. What else are they working on?
Scale is another big one.
Okay.
Right now, Genie 2 can make worlds that run for about a minute.
That's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. But it's still a short time.
So no virtual weekend getaways to an AI world just yet.
Not yet. But the researchers are pretty optimistic that they can make these environments run longer and be more complex.
That's cool. It's exciting to think about what those future worlds could look like.
Definitely.
But as we think about all that, I think it's important to talk about responsible development.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about AI that can create these super realistic simulations. There have to be some risks, right?
Oh, absolutely. The DeepMind team is really thinking carefully about the potential for misuse. The ability to create such realistic content could be used to create deceptive or even harmful simulations.
It's like with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just create powerful AI. We need to be super careful about how it's used.
Right.
And that's why DeepMind is focusing on transparency, publishing their findings, and working with the whole AI community to talk about these challenges.
So it's not a solo mission. It's about bringing everyone together.
It is. This technology can be so beneficial, but we need to have those open conversations about ethics and safeguards.
So it's not just about what we can do, but what we should do.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about how it works and what to watch out for. But let's be real. What really gets people excited about AI is the wow factor.
Yeah.
What were some of the things about Genie 2 that blew your mind when you were looking into it?
For me, it's how Genie 2 seemed to capture something really fundamental about how our own minds work. We're constantly building these mental models of the world around us.
Yeah.
We use those models to predict what's going to happen next, to plan our actions, to make sense of our experiences.
Like when you're crossing a busy street, you're always thinking about where the cars and people are going to go so you don't get hit.
Exactly. And Genie 2 is, in a way, doing something similar. It's building its own internal model of a world, learning the rules of physics, understanding how things interact, and then using that knowledge to create these believable simulations.
So it's not just copying what it's seen, it's developing a kind of understanding.
You could say that, And that's what makes it so powerful.
Okay.
It's not just about fancy graphics or raw computing power. It's about making a virtual world that feels real, that reacts to us in a way that makes sense.
Like the difference between watching a movie and actually being in the story.
Exactly. And that opens up so many possibilities.
Yeah, not just for gaming, but for all kinds of things.
Right? Like imagine architects designing buildings and then being able to walk through them virtually before they're even built.
Wow.
They could experience the space, check sight lines, even test things like acoustics and lighting in a way that's just not possible with normal blueprints.
That would be amazing. No more discovering your new living room has a terrible echo after it's finished.
Exactly. What about training there? Surgeons could practice surgeries on digital patients that react realistically. Pilots could train for emergency landings in super realistic environments.
It's like instead of putting people in danger, they could learn in this safe and controlled virtual world.
Exactly. And what about education? Imagine if history lessons weren't just boring textbooks.
Yeah.
But these interactive worlds you could explore.
Like walking through ancient Rome.
Exactly. You could go on virtual field trips to different places.
Even other planets?
Maybe. The possibilities are huge.
It's mind-blowing.
It makes you wonder how we prepare for a world where creating these virtual experiences is so easy.
Will everyone need to learn how to be a game designer?
Or will we see these new jobs pop up like virtual world architect or AI experience director?
That's a good question. We're already seeing hints of that.
We are. Those concept artists whose work was used for Genie 2, their skills are going to be in high demand.
Right.
And as these technologies get more powerful, AI ethics becomes even more important.
It's like we're entering this new frontier. There's all this potential, but we need to build the right foundations.
A responsible and ethical future.
Exactly.
We need to ask ourselves the tough questions now while it's still early.
Okay, so we've talked about all the cool stuff, the need for responsibility, even how Genie 2 is kind of like our own brains.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, what about those weird outtakes the researchers talked about?
Yeah.
You know, the ghost, the parkour expert, that message.
Right.
Are those just glitches or is there something more to it?
But that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
These unexpected things, while sometimes funny, give us a glimpse into how Genie 2 works. It's not just following instructions, it's also creating its own interpretations.
So it's not just a tool, it's like a creative partner.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what creativity really is. And if AI can be truly creative.
It's a little freaky, but also cool to think about.
It definitely challenges what we think about AI.
All right.
And makes us ask what its role in society should be.
It feels like the beginning of something new, where human and machine creativity start to blend together.
Exactly. And that's what makes Genie 2 so important.
Okay.
It's not just the tech itself, but what it could mean for what's possible and how we think about creation.
That's a great point. And I think that leads us perfectly into the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've explored the how and the why now of Genie 2.
Yeah.
But what about the what's next? Join us after the break as we talk about the bigger picture and what this tech could mean for the future.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Genie 2. We've talked about how it works, the challenges, the potential.
Yeah.
But now I want to kind of zoom out to the bigger picture.
What does Genie 2 mean for, like us regular people beyond just the tech demos and research papers?
This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
This is where we start to see that connection between the virtual and the real. Genie 2 gives us a glimpse into a future where those lines get even blurrier.
We already spend so much time online. Social media, work, entertainment.
Right.
Is this just more of that?
It's not just about spending more time in digital spaces.
Yeah, okay.
But about the quality and nature of those experiences. With Genie 2, we're talking about worlds that feel real.
Yeah.
Immersive, interactive, that respond to you in a believable way.
So it's less about just watching and more about doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Remember those examples we talked about?
Yeah.
Architects designing buildings and actually experiencing them virtually?
Right.
Not just looking at a picture. Surgeons practicing complex procedures with a level of realism we've never seen before.
So we're talking about a major shift in fields like design, medicine, even education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you add in entertainment, the possibilities just explode.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine interactive movies that change based on what you do, or video games that have no limits.
Like those choose-your-own-adventure books, but way cooler.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about having fun.
Right.
What if education was about experiencing history, not just reading about it?
Yeah.
Walk through ancient Pompeii, sail with Columbus, explore Mars.
That would make learning so much more fun.
It would, and you'd remember it.
Instead of just memorizing facts, you'd actually be there.
That's what this tech can do.
Right.
Change how we learn, interact with the world.
It's exciting, but kind of scary, too.
No. It makes you wonder, are we ready for this?
Yeah, like, will we all need to learn how to design these worlds?
Maybe. Or will we see those new jobs you mentioned?
The world architects, the AI experience directors.
Yeah, who knows? It's going to be wild to see how it all plays out.
Feels like we're just at the beginning.
We are. And as this technology gets even better, it's going to change our culture, our economy, even how we understand ourselves.
That's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So if you had to give our listeners one key takeaway about Genie 2 and what it all means, what would it be?
Genie 2 isn't just about creating worlds.
Okay.
It's about creating questions. It's making us rethink what's possible, challenge what we believe about creativity and intelligence.
Right.
And think about what kind of future we want.
It's a catalyst for a bigger conversation about AI and our role in all of this.
Exactly. A conversation we all need to be part of.
Well said. And on that note, that wraps up our deep dive into Genie 2. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
We hope you learned some cool new things and maybe even came away with some questions of your own. Until next time, keep exploring the world, both the real and the virtual, and let us know what you think the future holds for AI.